Good morning and welcome to the latest Packaging Europe podcast. I'm pleased to be joined this morning by Elvire Regnier, founder of the Regenerative-Advisory. This is built on a strong background in procurement, which is a topic that I haven't particularly delved into within the packaging industry. So I'm really pleased to hear all the viewpoints that she can give us this morning. She will be one of our speakers at the Sustainable Packaging Summit, which will be held on the 12th and 13th of November in Amsterdam. This is Europe's largest packaging sustainability events, and I'm pleased to offer a 10% discount for our podcast listeners using the code PEPAD10 at checkout. I'll post that in the details of the podcast as well. But yes, I would love to welcome you, Elvire, this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Libby, thank you for inviting me to this podcast and to speak at your event in November in Amsterdam.
So Elvire will be joining to discuss how brands can opt for greener packaging when consumer budgets are under pressure, and what's the outlook for infrastructure investment when interest rates are rocketing. And obviously she can bring her procurement hat to this conversation at the summit. But this morning I'd really like to kind of hear a little bit about your background. What can you tell me about procurement when it comes to sustainability in the packaging industry as a starting point?
Sure. So just a little bit of my background. So I have 30 years, even a little bit more now in procurement, working with FMCG companies, working for Yoplait, the yogurt company here in France, and then I moved to Colgate-Palmolive, working in New York in the headquarters, leading the personal care procurement category. So as you can guess, including a lot of packagings, plastic bottles, dispensers, but also corrugates. That was in the years 2001 or 2002. In 2010. And at that time, there was nothing about ESG or sustainability. That was not at all the purpose of procurement or even any company. I remember, this is not in packaging, this is in chemicals, but we started to get some alerts from WWF about the palm oil, because that was produced from Borneo, hijacking the ecosystem of the orangutan. I had to say at that time, the focus was very much more on chemicals, on the environment. But it was anecdotal, it was not really common. Then I joined Unilever as a global VP of a program called Partner to Win. And that has been launched under the leadership of Paul Polman, who was a CEO at that time. And Paul Polman was saying two very interesting things. In 2010, he was saying we will double our turnover by 2020 by maintaining our environmental impact. So I think that was nicely articulated, because some companies, they focus very much on growth, some other very much on impact, but being able to articulate both, I think that was really good. Very interesting, very smart. So that means everybody in the company, from HR to finance, procurement, every time we had to do something, we had to think about what are we doing here for the growth? Are we working to launch a new product to impact the growth of the company? And are we also working on impacting the environment? And he was saying that was specific to procurement, 70% of the innovation should come from the suppliers. And I think this is very smart also, because this is a way to really support the growth of the company and the impact, because suppliers, they know a lot, of course, about how they manage their supply chain, how they prepare their material. And by doing that, he was trying to tackle one specific aspect of big companies. It's a not invented here syndrome. So that means I'm Unilever, I'm Colgate, I'm whatever. If it's not invented by my engineers, it's not good. On the Colgate side, recently they launched toothpaste packaging that is made without metal, aluminum, because forever it has been considered that the toothpaste packaging should include to protect the product from the oxidation and the light. And Colgate has been very good in working with some suppliers to invent a packaging that is 100% plastic, which means you can recycle it. Because of course, as you know, when there is aluminum and plastic, you cannot separate them and you cannot recycle them. Mm-hmm. And so that means things have changed since 2010 when I left. Under the impulsion of some people like Paul Polman, definitely. And what Colgate did, they have not patented this new packaging. That means it's available for free to any company that's producing toothpaste. And why Colgate did that? They did that because they wanted the toothpaste tube to be recyclable. Because if you add 100 plastic packaging mixed with a mix of aluminum and plastic, it's not renewable. So this is why they have decided to offer this, let's say, technology to their competitors, which to me, it's really a signal that things are moving. When I did some search, it seemed that happens in the past, not in packaging, but when the security belt in the cars have been invented. This has been invented by Volvo. And I heard that Volvo, because the purpose was to save lives, they decided not to patent and to offer it to all the car industry, which is absolutely fair. So sometimes we are a bit desperate, we are just, very negative and we think the world is going nowhere. But in fact, no. Some companies, it has been proved that in the past and still now, consider that the global interest is higher than their own interest. So this is exactly what Colgate did with the toothpaste packaging. And I think this is a great example. And let's hope that some more will come from other companies, because companies cannot beat the global heating by themselves. It's like it's all together that we can do it as companies who produce, but also as clients, as customers, by making the right choice when we shop, deciding which product we are going to buy. And it's not always more expensive, by the way, because so many people are telling me ESG costs money. That I don't agree, because if you consider the eco-conception, and there is a European study that showed that 80% of the impact of a packaging is decided at its conception level. So if from the conception you work with your supplier, making sure that what you are going to produce can be recyclable or is coming from recyclable material, then you can make the right decision and then the magic can happen. I've been so much impacted by this philosophy of Paul Polman about growth and ESG impact. Then when I moved to my next job, which was a CPO role, my first CPO role, I spent 7 years at a company in France called Avril. It's a 7 billion company producing biodiesel. And so I applied the same strategy. I developed a partnership with my suppliers. At Colgate, at Unilever, the name of the program was Partner to Win, and I call it Win-Win Way. And we are working hard with suppliers to really work on the conception of the products to make sure they are meeting our expectation in terms of ESG. And not only on packaging, but also on, this can apply to any kind of category. Insurance, packaging, of course, but also insurance, ingredients, chemicals. Collaboration really makes a difference. And then my last CPO job before I set up my own boutique was with L'Occitane, a very well-known company for its, let's say, consideration for nature. And we launched a similar program called Partners by Nature, and with our suppliers, and working again on solutions that impact the growth of the company, but also the environment. So for instance, we were working on aluminum tube where we were sticking a label on it. So we decided to stop that and to have aluminum tube that is already printed with the information we need on it. So to avoid, let's say, multiple packaging materials. So you might consider this as tiny progresses, but at the end of the day, we're not going to change, the global heating with like a big bang. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be tiny, tiny, tiny projects. And I'm so proud to be a European citizen, because I can really see, I was in the US last week. I've always had a lot of admiration for the US because I spent 8 years with Colgate, enjoying working because easy to work with, American colleagues. But frankly speaking, in terms of recycling, Europe is much ahead. We have our European CS3D, CSRD rules who are really showing the way. including for buyers. I was discussing with some European buyers, and they were telling me they are so happy there is no regulation because it clarified their agenda. Now they know what they have to do, because since then it was like a little bit confusing, a bit ambiguous. But now we know that this is what the Europe is imposing to the industry, is to try to work making sure your supply chain is as clean as possible, and your material are recyclable.
Thank you. And that's a key focus we have here at Packaging Europe, bringing the packaging value chain together to work towards a more sustainable future. And as I understand, you mentioned your consultancy there. Perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about your role, how you work today.
I'm working with packaging companies, but let me start first with another activity I'm doing. It's teaching. I'm teaching in two business schools in Paris, ESSEC Business School and HEC, which are top business schools here in France. And I'm teaching the new generations. And this is so important. I'm teaching the new generation of procurement people, because I'm teaching in the Master of Procurement, but also in business school. That means the CEO of the future, the CFO of the future. This is very important to share with the new generation that we can do things differently. Because I learned it the hard way. I learned it during my career, but because I was challenged by some NGOs, or I was like also understanding that what my strategies were not always the best in terms of environment. So I think it's important for all of us, and I would love maybe to share that to the people who are listening to us today, that teaching the new generation, teaching young buyers we have in our teams, the R&D, the packaging R&D people, and be very demanding in terms of efforts should be made to ensure we develop packaging that are coming from a renewed material and that can be renewable also. So this is why I'm teaching in business schools. I'm also offering trainings to my clients, because this is another way also to share, the vision. And with some of them, I'm also working to develop the partnership with their suppliers. That means working through an approach that helps them choose the right supplier, because it's not a question of the procurement organization to impose a supplier to work with it. It's really a partnership. So it should be like a decision, a common decision to work together with the supplier. And the third very important partner is a stakeholder, because I have seen so many examples of great development managed by R&D directly with suppliers without procurement. And when we do that, the proof of concept always works very well. But when it is asked to the buyers to join the discussion, then it doesn't work anymore, because procurement was not involved at the beginning. And it's the same. Sometimes you see procurement people working very hard with some suppliers, developing some great ideas without involving R&D. And when you involve R&D late in the process, they maybe are not as, let's say, collaborative as expected. And I fully understand. So what I'm teaching my clients, or what I'm accompanying my clients to, it's really to build this balance of these three partners, because if not, unfortunately, you can spend a lot of money, a lot of efforts, but it will bring only frustration and disappointment, because it's not going to go till the end of the process of delivering a material that is, let's say, meeting the expectations in terms of price, cost, and environmental impact. Because again, I do not disconnect growth, that includes, of course, prices and cost, to the R&D, let's say, in a specific case, stakeholders in a specific case, can be marketing also. Making sure the supplier you decide to work with, it's really committed and is sharing the same values as yours, because many suppliers are always happy to collaborate, but without maybe sometimes sharing always the same, vision. And so when it is requested for them to spend more, resources for collaboration, then it goes nowhere. And also something I help my client doing is to organize workup sessions with the suppliers, but that involves all the function of the companies. So that means in these meetings, you need to have finance from both sides. You need to have supply chain from both sides. You need to have marketing from both sides. Because if not, some decision can be made, but without the right angle. So having a 360 approach, it's what I call it regenerative days. So it's a full day, but we really tackle the important topics and we agree. So at the end of the day, we are aligned on the common agenda, on the common next steps. And this is how, to me, it works.
That makes total sense to me, to work in that manner. What are kind of the main issues and challenges that you do still face, even when having this 360 approach?
You mean challenges? Wow, it's like, business is very similar to any kind of other human relationship. So I usually compare that to a marriage, and of course you decide to share your life with someone, but we know that by experience that is not like that. Sometimes things are going well, sometimes things are going not so well, but what is important is to try to keep the discussion. Sometimes you need to split, and it is okay. It's better to split than to have a long life of frustration. So with some suppliers, sometimes it seems that we need to split because we haven't done the right choice on the procurement side. But this is why it's always better to anticipate that and to share upfront our vision, because not all companies are looking to have an environmental impact, and it's okay. It's their decision. But I think as a buyer, it's my decision not to work with these people, even if in terms of prices, they are super cheap.
Yeah, so it's really balancing the reality with expectations.
Yeah, and I'm talking a lot about environmental impact, but we need to think about human impact, because this is to me even more important. Because if we don't fix these human issues, we won't be able to fix, to my point of view, the environmental issues we're facing. Because until some countries will offer very low wages to people, they will use children to, on their supply chain, they will always be able to be very competitive in terms of prices. I think it is our responsibility as a client, as a buyer, to resist from that and to make sure what we are doing is respectful of the new legislation. This is why I'm so happy we have this new legislation, because now, even if we are sometimes very much motivated, pushed to go to the cheapest solution, no, we cannot do that. We need really to consider the full picture, the 360 I was mentioning before.
Yeah, and I'm really impressed looking at your website. You do touch on some really prescient issues that we all face. You just touched there on there's no fight against climate change without respecting human rights as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of your passion for this?
This is maybe my personal life. I was born in Asia, and I grew up in Asia and in Africa, also in Colombia. By living in these countries, you can see the way these populations are living, which are very far away from our European or Western standards in terms of health, in terms of education. This is something that is impacting me, because I have seen that as a child, as a teenager. Even if I know, and this is, of course, the situation for all of us in Europe or in the US, our kids are not going to be put in slavery. This is not going to happen. So sometimes you tend to forget about that and to focus only what is impacting us. And the temperature, the hot summers, the dryness, the storms, of course, is impacting us. So we only focus on the symptoms, to me. But we don't, because these are the symptoms which are hurting us. But we don't focus on the disease. And the disease, to me, is really the lack of respect of the human rights, because it will always, let's say, maintain an imbalance in terms of prices. And as a buyers, it's not easy. And this is what I'm sharing also with my young students, I'm telling them, you are 23, 24, you are going to join a company in a procurement department, in a finance department, and guess what? You are going to be asked to make sure what you do delivers maximum of money. Yes, if you focus only on price, but if you start again having this 360 approach, then you can consider a different angle. And then I'm going to teach you all the elements you can consider when you do use 360, so you have the skills to try to convince your management that maybe there is another way than just going to the cheapest price.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing some of the things that you focus on in this podcast today. I think we could probably talk for hours about all the different kind of aspects and things that you cover. But it's really great to have this little introduction ahead of the summit, where we look forward to welcoming you on stage to talk more in depth about the procurement and ESG side of things. Is there anything you would like to leave us with? Anything for the packaging industry, any advice or tips that you have going forward?
Yeah, so first, I'm very excited to be on stage in November for this event and interacting with the participants and getting their feedback, because, of course, I try to be as pragmatic as possible. And it's based on my 30 years of experience. I don't want to become too much theoretical. And it's always good to have, connection with to stay connected to real life, which is happening with my clients. So I'm really looking for that. And yes, my advice would be to always go back to the basics, to remember always why we're doing what we do. Why are we negotiating a price with a supplier? Is it, again, just to focus on a small part of the relationship, or maybe to try to build something that is going to impact my company as a buyer, the company of my supplier, and the whole ecosystem? And impacting the ecosystem on the right way should be, for us in procurement, or the conception of the way we see our work, impacting the ecosystem on the right way, moving the ecosystem to the right direction, which has not been always the case in the past.
Brilliant. Well, thank you again for joining us. And yes, we look forward to seeing you at the summit. And the same goes to our audience today. If you've not yet purchased a ticket to the summit, then please use the 10% discount that we're offering for podcast listeners using the code PEPOD10 at the checkouts. And as I mentioned, I will write those details at the bottom of the box. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Libby. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.